All right, I think we're all good. Hi, guys. It's Betty here from OCO Collaborative. I am a digital navigator and I'm also the communications coordinator for OCO Collaborative. And today we are hosting a writing workshop. So, this writing workshop is going to be completely based on how to use Microsoft Word. I'm going to go through a short story myself personally. I'm going to help navigate you guys through it. And what we're also going to be doing is designing our short story in Canva. This is going to be a super beginner, workshop. If you guys have never used Microsoft Word before, do not worry. It's super fun actually to use, and I use it every day. We're also going to explore Canva. If you have no experience before with Canva, do not worry. Canva is a graphic design application. It's super cool, it's super fun to use, and it's probably one of my favorite applications that I use here every single day. We use it for a ton of different things here at OCO Collaborative. We use it for our schedules, we use it for press releases, we use it for graphics that you see for when we go live on YouTube. We use it for all kinds of different content creation. And I personally am really excited for this workshop because it allows me to showcase some things that I really enjoy. And hopefully, you guys will really enjoy too after this workshop. Of course, if anybody has any questions, you're more than able to ask away in our live chat. If anybody is interested in learning more about these applications too, I would always really recommend coming to one of our workshops, taking a quick look at our schedule, see what we have coming up here at OCO Collaborative, of course. And if you see something on the schedule that you're really interested in, but you're not sure, go ahead and give us a call. Our phone number here at OCO Collaborative is 330-406-0731. Or you could also reach out to me or any of our other digital navigators. My email at OCO Collaborative is Elizabeth, ELIZABETH, at ococollaborative.org. Please don't hesitate to ask us any of your questions either during this live or over the phone. We would love to try to help you out with any digital problems you have, technology problems, or even application use. And I hope to see you in class soon. But with that getting said, let's talk a little bit about Microsoft Word first. Microsoft Word is a Microsoft Office product. And when I say it's a Microsoft Office product, it's a product that you can use through the Microsoft Office suite that'll actually act as a document for you. If you've ever received anything on paper, chances are that it's a typed document, one. And then if it is a typed document, an application was used to type that document. Microsoft Word is an application that allows you to type documents almost infinitely for as long as you would like to. And you can type a variety of documents into Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word is used to either write down letters, memos, lists. For example, I know a couple people who actually like to write cookbooks and recipes down in Microsoft Word. It's a really unique application that you can format for almost any reason, for any personal use, whatever. We're going to be using Microsoft Word today simply because I think it's a really important application to learn how to navigate. A lot of jobs require experience with Word. I use Word every single day as a college student. So I always like to instruct Word because it's a really fun application and really important to know. The other application that we're using today, let's talk about that a little bit more. It's Canva. Canva is a kind of popular application nowadays for graphic design work. When I say graphic design work, Canva helps you create whatever you might have had as a typed document into a lot more of a prettier typed document in certain experiences. You can type documents from scratch in Canva, of course, but sometimes I like to have my rough draft done first. That's normally my preference. But if you like to create your entire document in a Canva document, you're more than welcome. Today, we're using Canva primarily for its design features. I would like to say that anything that Canva does have that you use, while it might be free to use, is actually copyrighted by their product servers. So they still own everything that you're using. You're just using it for a creative purpose. You can use Canva for creating social media posts if you're a small business, for documents, presentations if you're in college and you need to give a presentation on a certain topic. You can also use it to create thumbnails for YouTube videos and other platforms. I use Canva every single day here at OCO Collaborative simply because it's a really good program. It has a lot of different design features that I love to experiment with, from caricatures of little people to maybe food icons to icons of applications that I want people to know that I use today or to go and follow. It also has the ability to animate certain graphic work in it too, which is really important for individuals who I think want to have a little bit of motion to their videos and stuff like that. You can animate either graphics, you can animate videos. It also has free range pictures and videos for you to use if you prefer that more realistic look and touch to things. I would love to show you guys around them right now, but first we do have to start working on our document. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a Microsoft Word application. A lot of times Microsoft Office products you do have to purchase in advance, or they might come with your devices. It's really important to either check with whoever you're buying your laptop from first if it does come from Microsoft Office products, or if not, you can also buy the licensing yourself. If you have ever received a laptop from us here at OCO Collaborative, you actually already have us to the Microsoft. We have licensing that is available on all of our laptops for you guys to use either in class or at home whenever you guys graduate with your laptops. They're a Hardware for Homes program. So when I open a Microsoft Word document, this is what I get. It's pretty simple. We have a couple different features in different areas, of course, to it. The main one that we have that's going to be very important to us is our blank document. With our blank document, we have a really important area right up here, right above our document, if you follow my mouse. This is called our ribbon. Our ribbon is really important for individuals who might need to change any type of specification in their document. If you want to change font name, if you want to change font size, if you wanted to make it bold, italicized, highlighted, the color of the font itself. You can also change your text alignment. You can change the fill. You can change the paragraph shading, line spacing. There's a ton of really cool things in Microsoft Word, and I think it's really important to be able to access those all the time. And we'll be using those interchangeably throughout the entire process of today's video. Another really important area that we have up here, right above our ribbon, is actually something that's a part of the ribbon, but a little different. We have tabs. Our tabs help us navigate to different things we might need help doing. For example, if we want to have photos put into our document, we would commonly insert those. So if I click on insert, I can insert a whole variety of different important aspects to our document. Well, today though, I'm primarily just going to be typing. It's really important that you know how to navigate Word. If there's something you want to do and you might not just be able to find it, I really always recommend individuals to try searching for something. A lot of times, the search suggestion bar will also try to help you out based off of things that you've either previously used prior or things you've had trouble looking for too. For example, I am always looking to see what my word count is, either for both working here or for my college classes and stuff like that. The word count is so important because a lot of times I'll have requirements on word counts that I have to hit. So if I was ever interested in knowing what my word count is, if I pop up to search and maybe it's not coming up, I can do a search for word and count. And it'll come up in the actions under there. I can click on it and it'll give me the document statistics that I have currently. And because I just opened the document, I have nothing. Those do change over time, though. Don't worry. We can do a quick text after the end and see where we're at. Another really important one is layout. You can change margins, the orientation size. You can change columns. I will be working with columns, though, today. We can also add references. We can review things. We can also view our page in different lights. And then file is probably the most important area of any Microsoft Office product, because this is where we can save, create anything, rename files, move files, or see version histories. Without further ado, though, let's get started. Whenever I start any kind of a document, the first thing I do is I like page numbers. Page numbers are really important to a lot of individuals. It inserts page numbers directly into your header. And when you go and click on header and footer, look at that, they're right in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type the word page. When I exit out of my header, now I have page 1 at the top. And as I continue, we'll watch how that changes just a little bit. Something I'm going to do is, this might not be necessarily a traditional way to write, but this is commonly how we write in journalism, is I'm going to give my story a title. It's going to be over here in this left side corner. And I'm going to be writing a children's book today. Bessie, the Best Loch Ness. And so this is my title that I'm going to roll with. I'm really interested in it. It's really cute. It's really simple. And what I did is I highlighted all my text. I did a quick control, press and hold that, and then press A. And what it does is it highlights all of your text in your document. What I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to format everything to the way that I like it. I'm personally a Times New Roman user. It's something that I really enjoy typing with. It's one of my favorite fonts. At the end of that line where I give it my title, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type my name. My name is Elizabeth Koss. I might go by Betty, but my name is Elizabeth Koss. And then I'm going to press one more enter. And I'm going to give this credit to the organization that I work for. A lot of times you'll see this in news writing. I am just doing it this way because I think it's really simple and it allows me to kind of start writing a little bit sooner. I don't want to be too worried about my format because what we're going to do is we're going to transition this over into a Canva document, so it's going to look completely different by that time. However, I do like to have some formatting. I'm very specific. So continuing on, what I'm going to do is I press down one more enter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to start writing. So before you start any type of document or creative project, you want to go into it with an idea about what you want to type. A lot of people experience writer's block. Something that personally helps me with my writer's block is I'll actually journal the things that come to my mind. And whenever I experience writer's block or I'm not certain about an idea, I'll flip through my journal and go, wow, that was a really good idea. Why don't I try to, kind of continue off of that? Maybe I can incorporate that somehow into the work that I'm doing today. And before I came in today, that's exactly what I did. Is I was like, oh God, what am I going to write about for this live stream? And I had previously talked for a couple weeks to a couple of my coworkers about, I think I want to do like a short children's book. I think it's something that'll look really good in Canva. I think it'll be something that's really fun for me to just personally write. And I think it's something that's always ever increasing in the amount of individuals who like to type and write about. A lot of people have children, they want to share stories with their children. And a lot of people know other people who have children and want to also help them have stories to tell their children. It's also a really simple kind of work. It's quick, it's easy, it has really short language, and we'll talk a little bit about that as I continue today. So I have my first little paragraph area typed out now. I took a quick second and wrote that. Bessie the Loch Ness Monster wasn't like the others. She was green like seaweed. The others blended into the lake, which always matched the shade of the sky. Something that is important to note about this little area is I don't necessarily like how it's formatted. A lot of people experience this as well within whenever they're writing. I always like to try to get formatting out of the way, like I explained a little bit earlier. So, what I'm going to do real quick is I'm just going to hit my tab. So, what tab does is it kind of helps indicate that this over here is the beginning of a new paragraph. I have my cursor still at the end, so now that I've done that, I'm able to continue to just type, and I'm going to take a quick sentence and finish out my paragraph to its fullness. All right. So I continued that on a little bit. Bessie loved the colors of the sky. They would change from blue to dark blue to orange and red at the end of the day. Each morning she'd watch the stars fade into the sky's bright white and yellow glow until the blue hue returned. And that's going to be my first paragraph. This week, actually, when I went to teach off site in Girard, we had talked about Microsoft Word a little bit and why, when we were typing, how I could continue that formatting and if Word would continue formatting that I've set up already. Something that's interesting to note is if I press enter at the end of any paragraph, it'll continue to hold where I had placed the tab mark at. It's kind of continuing those same steadings and that same style that I've created, and I'm able to continue to type and it'll recognize that this is a new paragraph that I've laid out. It's really nice that Microsoft Word is able to recognize those things. I really always encourage people to use Microsoft Word for its ability to recognize style and format that you've set. Something that's also really interesting to note about Microsoft Word recognizing styles you have preset is if I had wanted to create a bulleted list, for example, I can create a bulleted list. And when I press enter again, it'll continue that bulleted list. It'll kind of go on infinitely until obviously undo all of that. But it's a really nice way that you can keep your formatting going. And Microsoft does its best to continue those formatting rules that you've set up. But I don't want to do a bulleted list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a backspace. I'm going to return to where I last was. And I'm going to continue to write just like how I was as well. So I do want to create a new paragraph. So I'm going to press enter and I'm going to type out something real quick if you guys don't mind. So I just added another quick little sentence. It's something simple. Bessie, the color of seaweed, never wanted to be. She wanted to be red or purple. She wanted her scales to shine something fun. Something that's really important to note about children's work, and this is something that I actually personally struggle with, is keeping things simple. You don't want words that might be unfamiliar to children, and you want to kind of have an ideal age range for the book that you're writing to kind of be for, anyways, when you go into the work. Something that you might notice is that this sentence is actually a lot simpler than any of the sentences that I have actually up towards the beginning. And that's actually really what we want to try to do is we want to keep those very simple. So, looking back at our beginning sentences, something that I want to kind of think about as I do my work is maybe personal editing. And that's something that I actually do struggle a little bit with here and there, but it's important to review your work. It really is. If I could go through my work and maybe go, I wonder if there's any words in this that maybe somebody might not know. Can I help make what I'm doing more accessible to my audience? You really need to take that into consideration with any work that you're doing. And so maybe I don't know if my children would know the word hue. Is it something that I can kind of provide context clues to in my story to help them navigate it? I honestly think this is really good, except for maybe the word hue. I think the word maybe I think how I have it written is actually pretty good. I think the word hue might be the only word that might be a little bit more confusing for, you know, some younger children. Something that I also might want to consider doing is maybe actually introducing words through context clues for younger children. Something like hue, if I can kind of, arrange it in a way that's similar to the word color, I would actually really encourage that for any writers out there. Bessie, unlike the other Loch Ness monsters, wanted to be the center of attention, but never knew how. Because she was a rich green color, many of the other monsters wouldn't invite her out. So, what I'm kind of doing here is I'm establishing a flow. There is something, however, that I don't necessarily like about my writing, but is very helpful when it comes to younger works, is consistently always introducing your subject by its direct name. You kind of want to avoid pronouns that might not be familiar to younger audiences. For example, consistently using the name Bessie at the beginning of each paragraph is something I really recommend for individuals who are creating works for younger children, just in case they might forget the name of somebody. You don't want to have something where it's unsure who you're necessarily referring to, especially if you have multiple characters going on in your work. If you have multiple characters going on in your work, using pronouns like she, he, it becomes a little bit hard to navigate who you're necessarily talking about. If you're talking about a specific individual, you want to make sure you're talking about a specific individual. It's really important for especially younger audiences because it's a lot more direct. When you're working with older audiences, though, you can use those pronouns a little bit more often. You can refer to individuals as it, they, a lot of times it's a little bit easier to understand that. But when working with a younger audience, I really, really, really do recommend using the proper name of an individual, place, location on that first reference. It's really going to help individuals out. So, something else that's really important to make sure you're doing while you're writing is to stay and pay attention to things that you want to be proper nouns. It's something that I think a lot of times we kind of skim over as we tend to be writing and we like to go back and correct. Well, I have consistently capitalized the name of Bessie. Something that you want to do is if you ever make mention to something that is important to note on a first reference and is a proper noun that you're going to continue to reference, you need to also have those capitalized. So I typed the sentence, with a love for dance, Bessie planned to showcase her true colors with pride on the night of the fallen star. The night of the fallen star. That is something that I really want to stick out to readers, and it's something that is able to be capitalized because I'm making this a proper noun. I want this to kind of be something that's established in this universe that it is of importance. I want it to feel important to my audience, especially because now it's capitalized, so it's going to stick out a little bit more to them. So, kind of like how I was speaking about, you may want to avoid pronouns for people, places, objects. Very similarly, from the example of Bessie, we're going to be doing that same idea with the Night of the Fallen Star. Something also important to note is I actually made the mistake of doing that is you don't capitalize articles commonly in sentences. If you're unfamiliar with what an article is in a sentence, it's words that come before a lot of times proper nouns. It's a, the, those little extra helpers, and they don't necessarily need to be capitalized. However, if it is capitalized or you see that another organization or location has it capitalized, you do need to respect that. However, in my work, I'm not going to be capitalizing those articles. I just personally don't like it. It's just a little bit of a style choice on my part. Continuing though. something you also want to do as you're typing is to check and see if Microsoft Word has any suggestions for you. So I did something real quick just there. It gave me a blue underline, and Microsoft Word tries to help you with if you have any type of mistakes in your work. It's really nice of an application like that to be trying to help you. It really is trying to give you a little bit of guidance. Maybe you made a mistake, and there's a couple of mistakes that I'm very aware of within my own writing right now. But one of the mistakes that Microsoft Word is actually trying to help guide me to is to watch star fly across the sky. The advice that Microsoft Word, when I click on that blue underline, is trying to give me, however, is to watch the stars fly across the sky. If that is something that needs to be corrected, you're able to click on the option, and when you click on the option, it'll actually correct it for you. It's really nice of Microsoft Word to be doing that, and now that I have those edits changed, Microsoft is trying to help guide me to, hey, there's some other things that I've noticed in here. We can work on those too. And that's something that's really important as you're writing because there's no way you're going to be able to catch all of your mistakes. As somebody who's been writing in journalism for a couple of years now, there's no way you're going to be able to catch everything. In fact, it's actually really hard to catch everything when you're writing. So, to have an application like Microsoft Word that's going to help you navigate those just in itself is really nice. There are other applications if you don't necessarily like Microsoft Word. For example, if you use Google Docs, you can download extensions or additional apps that'll help you kind of with either grammar or spelling and stuff like that. I think the most popular one that I can mention is Grammarly. Grammarly will actually do all of these edits very similarly. It'll underline things in red, it'll underline things in blue to tell you, hey, you misspelled this, or maybe you meant this if you used the wrong word. Those kinds of applications are really helpful, and I actually really enjoy spell check applications. I think it's really important to have something that not only helps me as a writer, but helps other writers too, because sometimes we mess up, and that's okay. Something that is to note is Microsoft Word is actually trying to help me with my formality right now. It's giving me an editor score at 86%. Not the greatest that I could do, but I'll take it today. And with its formality, it wants me to change a contraction, wasn't, to was not. It thinks that that might either be a little bit more formal, and it actually is really recommending that because it is more formal. And I'm going to lean into agreeance because I think that might be nice, and I'm going to bet that this also is a formality. Yep. So the contraction of she'd, they're recommending I do she would. And if there was an example that I could do, for example, I don't necessarily care for that edit. I can actually ignore that edit. And by telling Microsoft Word that I don't agree with it or I'd like to ignore it, it doesn't hurt my editor score any worse or better. They respect my choices as a writer. And then you'll see my editor score go up because they're choosing to acknowledge that that's the choice that I made. However, I'm more than welcome to still go and make that change myself. Another thing that's really important to note is Microsoft Word will also try to help you with clarity. So think of it as like a in-house thesaurus. It's a really interesting aspect that Microsoft Word has that it's like, hey, well, we know you're using this word, but there might be better words for you in this situation. The example that they're giving me is Bessie planned to showcase her true colors with pride. Rather, what if you used a word like Bessie planned to highlight her true colors? Bessie planned to display her true colors. And showcase is a little bit of a loaded word. It has two parts to it. It might be a little bit confusing for a younger audience, so I actually am going to go with the display option. But I could choose either highlight or display. And another really interesting thing that Microsoft Word does have is show learning tip. And it's kind of going to give you an explanation of what jargon is. It's going to tell you, sometimes I think I've even seen about idioms potentially in there, but it kind of tells you that you want to stay away from language that might be harder for certain audiences to understand. And it's trying to just be a little bit more acceptable, try to keep it a little bit more simplified. You want it to be well known across the gap. So I completely agree. So I'm going to go with display. And you'll notice that now we have an editor score of 100. That's like my favorite thing ever that I could even tell you about. I love seeing my editor score at 100. I'll even take a 99 with honor. It's amazing to me. I don't know, just makes me feel like I did good. But I'm going to continue typing real quick if you guys don't mind. You're welcome to continue to also type along as well if you guys were interested in something like that too. If you wanted to use this hour as a way for you to work creatively, to listen to this, to maybe get some ideas or inspiration, you are more than welcome. So now that I have a couple little things written, I'm going to once again go through the suggestions, take a moment, recognize them, recognize the mistakes I made. And something else is that I've noticed that I've been making a consistent error actually throughout my piece so far. I've been not capitalizing Loch Ness. So there's one area where I'm going to go back real quick. This is a consistency thing on my end that I'd like to keep up and keep going. And if you ever notice any consistency errors that you're kind of struggling with as you're writing, it is hard to admit that you need to make those decisions sometimes. It really is. I know a lot of people who are like, I don't know if I should capitalize at the beginning of, not a full quote, or maybe I should capitalize every single time I introduce this situation. The issue with consistency is there's a lot of different styles that you could follow, or you could also have your own personal style as you write. If you were to go for publication, a lot of times there are specific types of styles that they want you to abide by. You do need to check in with those publications, see what they want you to do. You need to check in with that. For example, within journalism, they follow AP style. A lot of college papers follow MLA or APA. If you've ever done any work with history, you're going to be working with Chicago style. There's a lot of different types of styles that are out there. I like to recommend people to actually just try to see if they can create their own. While it might be not widely known on a record, number of people, it's something that you enjoy following. It's something that you enjoy abiding by. And if that makes the writing process more enjoyable for you, then that's what we're all about in this type of a creative process. Is you want to enjoy writing, don't think too much about the specifics unless you want to start thinking about publication though. Then you're going to have to probably give a little bit of leeway, but enjoy it while you can, is always what I recommend. I'm going to be introducing some harder words real quick for our audience. Not too hard, but a little bit above the age range that I was thinking, just because I want to try to showcase a little bit of those context clues about like what they might mean. Something that's also important to note is how Microsoft Word actually designates the difference between like a punctuation error and like an actual like a grammatical error versus like a spelling error. If you have a grammatical error or something that the editor kind of thinks might do better, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll underline it in blue. But if you have an actual spelling error or some type of a mistake or typo, it'll actually underline it in red. It's going to go from two thin straight lines to a red squiggle line. It's kind of interesting that they use it as a different designation. It's also kind of as a way to kind of help you navigate what kind of an error was this and would I agree with it. A lot of times I save all of my grammar errors for the very end just because, for example, some of the styles that I work with have different interpretations of how grammar should work. For example, APA style is very big on using a serial comma or an Oxford comma. In fact, so is MLA, so is Chicago. They very much believe that the Oxford comma is really necessary for facilitating how a sentence's structure goes on. But within journalistic writing, they actually encourage the opposite. They don't believe the Oxford comma is worth it. They don't believe the serial comma should be used in its writing. So sometimes you have to kind of recognize, do I want this as something that's going to be my style? Or is this something that is widely kind of known and respected? And then, regardless, is it something that you like, as always? A really important thing to note about formatting how sentences look is you always want to start off something that's being said with a quotation mark. You want to make sure that your quotation marks are actually facing the correct way. I'm going to zoom this in real quick. Nobody minds. Is you want to make sure that your quote marks are facing the right direction, and you want to have quote marks at the beginning and end of your quote. If you're ending a sentence, you need to make sure that you have punctuation there as well. I'm actually going to change this to the name of the individual just because that's something that I spoke about earlier is we want to try to avoid pronouns in children's literature just because we want them to be able to recognize a person's name. We want to create that familiarity. One more time, when I'm ending quotes, we need to end with a quote mark. I'm indecisive, I apologize. So I'm going to zoom back out really quickly. When I zoom out, you can see we have done quite a lot. It's very, very easy to write very fast. And I think a lot of people actually assume that writing doesn't go fast, especially when you have writer's block. It's hard to feel like you're making any progress sometimes. But if you ever just take a step back, look at your work, really be proud of it, genuinely. It's something that can go fast when you're not paying attention to it. But now that I've zoomed out, I'm at the end of page 1 almost. I am at the end of page 1 actually. But regardless, now that I've started on page 2, this is where I really want to start considering wrapping up this short children's novel. Something to note about children's books or children's novels is they are nowhere near as long as some of the literature that is young adult or adult rated. It goes quite fast. It's something that it doesn't really necessarily go super long. You have the introduction, you have the rising action, the climax, and then you have your denouement. It resolves itself pretty quickly. While I'm trying to get this resolved very quickly, what I've done is I've made sure I've introduced my characters, my prime character, my subject of the story. My focus character is going to be Bessie. She's a Loch Ness monster who's not like the others. You know, she's green like seaweed when all the other Loch Ness monsters are the color of the lake. They're the color of the sky. They reflect the colors of, whatever they're with. And Bessie, the color seaweed, has never wanted to be. However, she's always known that she's a little bit special. She's always known that she has this, interesting factor about herself. So she's really excited to go to this event that's going to be tonight, the night that I have my event date set in my short little book. And however, she's kind of told, no, we don't want you there. And she feels very upset by that. We're kind of jumping a lot of lines very quickly. If this was a young adult novel, this would be way more fleshed out. This would have a lot more detail. Our conversations between our characters wouldn't just be one line of, "What's wrong, dear?" Benson asked. "You're home really early, and on the night of the fallen star." That's something that you keep very simple for children's works. But that's something that works very well for children's works. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but if we were to transition this over into a young adult novel, you'd have, "What's wrong, dear?" Benson looked sullen at the idea that Bessie was home so early. "You're home really early, and on the night of the fallen star." The conversation would continue way beyond that. Bessie looked downward sadly. She did not want to remain at school any longer. She did not realize her father might get upset, though. It's something that we're just keeping it to what it is. We're not really imagining what else might be outside of the constraints of our characters we've established. And something that's also important to note is children's work doesn't really oftentimes have a lot of characters. I think a lot of times when it comes to this creation process, a lot of us imagine, oh, I have so and so, I have their brother, I have their mother, I have their best friend. Their best friend has an admirer, their admirer has, somebody that's the villain archetype. You have all these working assets that you're trying to write with, but when it comes to children's work, you want to really kind of funnel that inwards. You want to keep it very much more simple. You want to keep it a lot more linear. So we're going to dive back into it though. So, what I'm kind of trying to do now as I try to round out my story is I'm introducing this moment of kind of realization for the character. I'm giving Bessie this odd kind of realization of, oh, this is something that I feel like completes me in a way, where Bessie has always wished to be a variety of different colors than she already is, where she's green. She's always wished that she was red or orange or purple. This dress, the idea of this dress is that she completes the rainbow. And I think that that's a really beautiful idea, is to help children realize maybe in some instances, while they might not feel like they belong, there is always a situation in which they do belong. And to this story that I've created, I wanted this dress to kind of be the idea that Bessie can fit in regardless of whether or not she feels like it. And if she can have something that helps her feel like it, that's something that I wanted to introduce the idea of. So I feel like I have wrapped it up pretty well. What I did is I do need to go back through and fix all of my little errors and stuff like that. Tiny things that you don't realize you do on accident as you're typing. But now I have my short story that's come to a conclusion. When the night drew near, Bessie's father asked her to walk outside and wait by the lake. Out there waiting for her were the stars, still in the sky. Soon hundreds of stars would dance across the world. Bessie wished she were like them a little more. You shine so brightly, her father said, walking towards the lake. So I got you this. Benson held out a sparkly dress, every shade of the rainbow except green. Bessie's eyes smiled. Before arriving at the Night of the Fallen Star celebration, Bessie changed into the dress. I'm actually not going to do that edit. I did it by instinct. She felt like she belonged. Her father, dropping her off now, left her moments before the stars began to move. In her new dress, staring toward the night sky, she felt happy. Then the stars began to shift, and the sky began to change to every color of the rainbow. The other monsters stared and looked surprised. Ooh and ah were heard throughout the town. As Bessie got lost in her amazement, she did not realize everyone was now staring at her. At her? Bessie looked at her scales, now changing colors as the sky was, surprised just like everyone else. That's so cool, one of the other Loch Ness said. Bessie smiled, and she finally realized how amazing it was to be different. So, a really short story, something that, definitely could be improved. I always recommend an editing period. It's something that I think is really important for any kind of a story that you do. But now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Canva. Canva is a graphic design editing application that you can use for creation of, certain documents. And today, what we're going to be using it for is we're going to be using it for creating a kind of a backdrop for our story. And Canva has a ton of different templates. If you create your own account on Canva, you can create a whole bunch of things either for free. I have a premium account through the organization that I work for. But what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to do a search for children's book. And I'm just going to kind of see what Canva's kind of recommending to me. Canva also has books just kind of automatically into their own pool. Something that I'm kind of trying to look for is something that's going to be a little bit more sea themed. This is something that might work. You do have to customize your book to what you need. It's also something that I wouldn't recommend necessarily trying to use in its completion. These are obviously copyrighted. People have ownership of these. You need to make these your own. Something like this might work for me though. I'm trying to see if there's a better one. But as you can see, there's a ton of different options that are available to you through Canva. If you were needing to make a flyer for any kind of like a work project, or if you were needing to make maybe like a schedule or something, I always really, really, really recommend something like Canva for that. This is something that I think I might use. I'm not crazy about the little tent people though. They're kind of cute though, but I don't necessarily need them for what I'm doing. I can remove them. That's the wonderful thing about Canva, is it has a lot of assets that are in it that you can actually change. Like these people, this little group of people, are actually not a fixture or a forced portion of the created document, and I can actually remove them. Something else to note is that Canva allows you to type free range however you'd like, essentially. You can change the type of font you're working with, you can change the size of it, the color of it, whether it's uppercase or not all uppercase. And this is the one that I'm looking for, but I'm looking for line spacing. This is something that I feel just could be a lot better in what I have organized. And I'm going to line up my text like this. So what I'm doing real quick is I'm just formatting the title of my book to fit better on this sign. And I'm moving down the text a little bit. And what I'm going to do here, instead of the subheading that they have, is what I'm going to do is I'm going to write my name. Now, isn't that cute? That's so cute. So Canva is really fun for a lot of those reasons. And as you can see, I can scroll through these pages and it's almost like a full book. What I really want to try to do though is I want to see if Canva has any elements that I might be able to use. And when I start typing lock, it already has suggested items for me. Loch Ness Monster. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And look at that. There's some really cute options. Maybe not as cute as I was hoping. He looks a little bit scary. Ah, there's something that we're looking for. Something cute, something simple. The thing about children's books is that you want to keep them really, really, really politely designed. If you are trying to design any type of a creative work for any of your children, grandchildren, whatever the situation might be, you really want to take into, account that you don't necessarily want a scary monster for them, unless they're interested in that. I, as a child, was addicted to Jurassic Park. That might not have been the best situation for me. I would prefer to have a conversation with my parents about that choice. But regardless, it was something that I greatly loved growing up. But use your own discretion with your own children or grandchildren. If this is a gift, I always recommend people to keep it PG. You keep it the same reading level that you wish that somebody had given you when you were younger. So what I'm doing right now is Canva allows you to alter how some images might look a lot of times. So what I'm doing is I'm customizing Bessie real quick. And another thing that's really cool that you can do is you can also crop these images. And I want Bessie to look like she's in the water. So I'm going to crop off her legs a little bit. I feel a little bad that I cropped off her legs. But what I did is she looks like she's now in the water. Another thing I'm going to do is I am going to add other Loch Ness monsters that look identical to Bessie into the background. And as I had said before, these Loch Ness monsters were the color of the lake. So it's really good that these ones look that type of shade of blue. I think that looks really good actually. And something that's important that you can do in Canva that I think is really important to know for anything that you might be using in Canva is you can oftentimes change the orientation or the layout of whatever you're working with. So I want to flip this object. I don't want him to be facing the opposite direction. I want him to be facing towards the sign, for example. So what I can do is I can actually flip that little design horizontally. And there we go. And now I have a little Loch Ness Monster guy. And I'm going to crop him the same way that I cropped Bessie. Maybe, if Canva will agree with me. Canva might not agree with me. I'm trying to get around a little bit. Something like that will work. Gonna go back up to crop. Ooh, Canva is not liking me for cropping this image, which is very rare. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take Bessie. I'm gonna do a keyboard shortcut just because that isn't agreeing with me. There's always some kind of a workaround. And I'm gonna press and hold Control, click on C, and then I'm gonna click on V while I'm still holding Control. And now I have a duplicate of Bessie. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna make her a different version. But this is gonna be another Loch Ness Monster guy. Look how cute that is. And now I should be able to flip it without error. And there we go. Now I have that extra little guy in there. And now we could start moving on to some other pages. This is where things get a little bit interesting. What you want to make sure you're doing is that you're able to switch between thing that's really important actually is that you can switch between windows. I have Word open and I have Canva open, and I'm going to show that actually real quick. I'm going to show my entire screen up there. And now you can kind of see the layout that I'm working with. So over on my right side, as you can see, I do have my Word document open. And then over on my left side, I have my Canva open. I'm not really working with any type of a title or anything, but I do want to start pressing and holding Control and clicking on C while I have text highlighted over in Word. And what I can do is go back over to my Canva window, press and hold Control, and then press V. And now I have that entire first paragraph copied and pasted over in Canva. And that's something that you can do for a lot of different situations in Canva. It's really interesting that you can just copy over text from some other type of an application in general. And the nice thing about it is it's keeping it formatted to the same font that it previously was in Canva. What I'm going to do real quick though is I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, just so it's a little bit more readable for whoever my audience may be. The thing about children's books and children's works is you want to make sure that they're clear. You really do. Working with compliance regulations isn't something that you necessarily have to think about when you're doing things just for fun or on your own. But when it comes to doing something that you do enjoy, and maybe for somebody else that you want to enjoy, please make sure that it's something that they can enjoy. And by that, I mean make it large enough for them to read, make it easy and clear to see. The current size font that I have on here is 46.7. Normally, I recommend anything 18 and above for any kind of a standard document. Those are very, very visible. When it comes to typing in MLA or APA or AP, those are traditionally 12-point fonts. I always like to have really good spacing for a lot of what I work with just because it makes it super visible. But so now I have my first page completely done. And you might be noticing over on my right side, that's a very small portion of what I have to go. And another thing that's really important is I need to keep making sure that I carry Bessie over every single page. And look at that. She's so cute. And I am going to get rid of my little campers. But what I am going to do is I'm going to look for like a cartoon pine tree and see what Canva recommends me as something that might work. And I'm going to look obviously at some of the other options that I already had in here. And something like that might work a lot better. It's just keeping those same assets that I previously had, keeping those going. And I'm just going to make sure that I copy all of those. And then I'm going to go back over into this documents page. And I'm just going to copy paste them. And look at that. That's so cute. I am going to bump this pine tree down just a little bit and bump it over just a little bit so that's not interfering with any of my text. Right? Cute. Canva is one of my favorite applications of all time to use simply because of fun, cute little features. Just like this. And all I'm going to do is just continue to fill in this little area with pine trees. And I think that looks pretty good. It's something simple. It's something that everybody could relate to. But obviously our focus is on Bessie. Yeah. Once again, we're not doing headings, so I don't have to worry about that. But I do need to make this a lot longer. And this comes into the situation of layers. Layers are really important whenever you're doing any kind of work. So simple right click, I can see layers. If you're unsure of where something is, when you click on layer, go down to show layers, you can see how everything in your entire page is laid out. It's really interesting to see how these things work. And all I want to do is I simply want to bring this up to the very top. I want to keep all that other stuff out of there. The only thing that should be on top of this little template plate is my text. And what I'm going to do though is now I have to bring in my story again. Control C, click in there, highlight that text, Control V, and let's start getting that formatted, shall we? Let's move that up. And I can add a little bit more in there, I think. Oh yeah, that looks way better. And look at that. We have page 2 done now. And like I said earlier when I started this, you can see that every single page that I made does have a header that says page 1, page 2. And that's something we can add to our Canva document in a minute too when we start to round this out. We're going to go over to this one. We're not doing subheadings. We're not doing subheadings. It's going to be the most common thing I say today. And now that we have this next batch, I'm going to bring over some text. Control V. I can make this box a little bit larger. We're not really losing anything by increasing its size. And now I can form this a little bit better. I have an extra space at the end. I'm going to blow this up a little bit. And look at that. We're going to move on to our next page. And I'll come back to this to add Bessie in that. I do like that little well. We're keeping the well. You guys don't have to hear me argue about that. And we're going to remove these. One of those. And so this is going to be a shorter page. And that's all right. That fits actually quite beautifully. If you're making some type of a creative project for just your own personal use, you don't have to be too picky about its presentation. I always try to not be too picky about any presentation I make that is just for my own enjoyment, simply because it's for my own enjoyment. I, one, want to enjoy it. And then two, if I am here to enjoy it, I don't want to worry about the process of making it too much. So if this is just a creative project you're going to be doing on the side for, your own grandchildren, for your own children, don't be too hard on yourself. Enjoy it. It's fun. And what I'm going to do is extend this. I'm going to extend that. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller of text because I would like to get a lot on this one slide. Oh, I'm not getting this much that on this slide. So I got you this is the last line. Okay. Going to go to the next page. Boop, 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 boop. Control C, Control V. Gonna extend that, make this a little bit larger. Remove that extra space at the end. And I am sad to say goodbye to all of these little poor fishing boys. But we do not have room for them in this small story we're doing. Maybe next time I do one of these, we can write about a small little fishing village, maybe. We are starting to wrap up our story too. And I think it's really important to note how fast this went, right? Like we are just over an hour in. It's something that went pretty fast. It's something that's actually really enjoyable just to do in your own fun time, in your own free time. I always recommend it. I want that amount of text on here. What we're going to do is we're going to bump this up. I need to extend this a little bit. And I'm going to extend this a little bit. Something to keep in mind is when you are doing these, you need to give proper amounts of space around your text. Give it some margin, give it some air. You don't want everything to feel cramped. And we're going to copy that. That's our last one. And something to note is it is in bullet points. We don't necessarily want that. So I'm going to click in here. I'm going to look at some other options that we have going on, and we don't want this to be a list. I'm going to make sure I have all my text selected when I make that change. And there we go. And of course, we were originally using centered, so we want everything to be centered. And there we go. Now we do have to start adding back in Bessie, of course. I think it's really important to note that we need to have everything that kind of looks similar. We don't want everything to feel a little bit bunched up. We want everything to feel congruent. And something that's really important is congruency between both our story and both what we're showing visually. While I'm doing this kind of a little bit more simply put in Canva, something that is important to note is we both have scene changes. We have, location changes. We have new individuals who come into the story. We have night and day transitions. When you're working in Canva, you have to kind of be a little bit more understanding with that, whatever kind of work that you are doing. It's something that I haven't really been too specific about in what I'm designing in Canva. But let's go in and let's start to fix that up then, shall we? Going back into Canva. Here we are. This is our page 2. Everything is still normal. This is Bessie just kind of being like, yeah, I love the sky. I love how it looks. And this is kind of a little bit of an explanation page. I do feel like there's a lot on here. I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit bigger. This does feel like a lot on this one page. It's kind of up to you if you feel like it's too much. I feel like for a casual children's book, this is genuinely too much, in my opinion, on one page. But I'm just doing this for fun. I think I'm going to keep it the way it is, just because I am running over my hour expectancy today. So this is the page that I need to kind of trim up a little bit. This one's our first location change. And something that's going to be just kind of cute that I'm going to do is I'm going to go take Bessie. I'm going to Control V or Control C, Control V. And we do have to give Bessie a dress. Cartoon dress. I feel like this is going to have the best results for me. Sure. How cute. Stylistically, this has a lot of issues for my design. But the idea was there. The idea was cute. Sometimes you have to realize that situationally, things might not work out the way you would like them to. And I'm having one of those moments right now. That's okay. That's so okay. We can also go back and look at what other elements there are that might work a little bit better in Canva. Is it a little bit confusing? Yes. Sometimes when I'm working on like creative works, I like to ask myself, would a child notice? And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I might roll with this little skirt. I think the little skirt's going to work a lot better. Oh, this works fantastic, actually. And there we go. Bessie has her best dress on. What I do need to do is I need to copy Bessie, and I need to have her father in the scene now. I want her father to be a little bit more of a bluish green. Canva actually allows you to change colors however you would like them to be changed. And now her father is a little bit more of like a turquoise. Yeah, yeah. You're going to flip him horizontally. I'm going to move this little land plateau for a little bit. I'm going to make Bessie a little bit more over here. And the thing about this scene is that the dad is in the kitchen. So what I'm going to do is look for cartoon kitchen. And I'm just going to see what pops up. Anything that I think might be cute or simple to add in here just to give that kind of same semblance of what the scene is trying to talk about. Um, yeah, the kitchen and the sea, the kitchen and the lake didn't make a lot of sense on my behalf. I do apologize. It was a creative moment on my own behalf and my own making. However, you can always go back and you can always change and revise your story. I think I'm going to pick this. I think I'm going to delete that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to crop it a little bit. I don't want this fruit in here. I just want these. And what I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to use this bottom area that I have down here. This like hanging area that I have is going to be this idea of the kitchen is here. I think that's what I'm going to roll with. Does it make a lot of sense? No. But also, the fun thing about doing children's work is that sometimes things don't have to make sense. And sometimes that's for the better for all of us when it comes to writing. More importantly, I just want you guys to figure out a little bit about how Canva works and how you can use it for literary purposes. That's not right. There we go. And I'll bring Bessie's dad to the top layer. There we go. Isn't that cute? Look at that now. That makes a lot more sense for what we're looking at visually. So now we kind of just want to we're going to bring Bessie back over. This is her going to her room. I kind of insinuated it. I don't think I said it directly, actually. This well is going to have to be a lot smaller. And so is Bessie. And I can bring the well to the top so that we start to give, a little bit more depth to our pages. Well, I know I said that we don't have to have everything be really complex for a children's book. I really enjoy being a perfectionist. It's just something about me. And look at that. That's cute. I'm going to make Bessie a little bit bigger, but not too big because it'll be a little awkward. But there we go. And then I have to bring this one to the front as well, just because of how the layers are interacting. There we go. And that's cute. Okay, so now we have this one, and we're getting to the night scene. So interestingly enough, this setup that I have on this story template is allowing me to change the color of the night sky, which is really important and I think is really cool. And we're going to continue to do that across the next couple of slides, just so that our readers know that it's night. And this slide in particular is a really important one because this is the slide that Bessie gets a new sparkly dress. And so I want to make sure that I bring Bessie back over. We're going to copy Bessie and she's going to come right back into our design. I'm going to flip her around though. I'm also going to flip the dress around though, promise. Promise, promise. There we go. Sometimes things are confusing to my brain. I do apologize. And something that's important and fun to note about the dress that we picked, we can actually change the colors of it. And I want there to be a couple of colors in here. I don't want there to be green, but we need yellow. I'm going to need blue. I'm going to make the red, red, red. And I'd like some purple in there. And that's probably not the best way to have gone about that. I'm going to rearrange the colors a little bit more, see if there's a better way I can arrange my dress. Let's actually do some yellow lines. Well, no, I'll actually make the stars yellow. I don't think the blue lines were bad, but the stars need to be yellow. And something else that's really cool that you can do is you can actually duplicate items. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to duplicate them. I'm going to crop this ever so slightly. Well, actually, no, I'm going to undo all that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do an overlay. These ones are going to be blue. The purple's going to be, let's do orange. And I'm going to change transparency. Yeah. And I'm just going to move this back a layer. So now we can kind of see a little bit of the underdress that Jessie has. And that's cute. And I'm going to reduce the opacity of this one as well. Oh, no, I'm not. Change my mind. I'm going to make the purple orange. And I'm going to make the orange purple. I did not make the orange purple. Sometimes Canva gets my brain a little bit mixed up. And that's okay. I'm going to bring the opacity of that back up a little bit. And now we have a fully designed Bessie. And she's cute in all of her glory. Adorable. Something that I want to do with this one is I really want to have the effect of everybody staring at Bessie. I have an extra area that I have to get rid of. Let's make this a little bit smaller. Really want to showcase that area. We're still working with the night sky. Oh, I apologize. And let's go get Bessie all decked out. What a cutie patootie. And this is really coming together now. I hope you guys can see that. I'm going to delete. Oh, interesting that those are all different assets. I'm going to delete that extra stuff that's kind of going on down there. And I have Bessie and all of her radiance. I'm going to make her a little bit smaller. But what I have to do is I have to go grab some other Loch Ness monsters for the scene. I'm going to have one that does look identical to her father. It'll be okay, I promise. One that's going to also be blue. Sure, that color works. And I'm going to have a third guy in here. Yeah, about there. And he's also going to have to be blue. Yeah, that'll work. And I need Bessie one last time. Let's change the color of the sky one last time. Let's get this a little bit better. I'm going to delete this gigantic tree down here. I'm gonna flip. That's so funny to me that does that like that. There we go. I'm gonna bring Bessie over here. I'm gonna bring these over here. These got a little bit rearranged, so I'm gonna fix that up real quick as I notice it. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to import a line. And this line is gonna be curved. I'm gonna flip it. I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller and a little bit more curvy. And it's going to be on Bessie. Gonna incredibly much zoom in, potentially zoom in too much. I'm gonna try to keep this centered for you guys. Making this very small is actually very much harder than I expected it to be. It is way harder to make a line smaller than I predicted. We can do it like this though, and that's okay. And we're gonna have it curved. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip it. And now we have a little tiny smile. And that's adorable. And there we go. Something else you guys could do is you could go back and you could add stars into the story, of course. That's going to be completely up to you, but it is technically all done. And so then this is our story that we created. It's Bessie the Best Loch Ness. Bessie the Best Loch Ness Monster was not like the others. She was green like seaweed. The others blended into the lake, which always matched the shade of the sky. Bessie loved the colors of the sky, but they would change from blue to dark blue to orange and red at the end of the day. And each morning she would watch the stars fade into the sky's bright white and yellow glow until the blue hue returned. Bessie, the color of seaweed, never wanted to be. She always wanted to be red or purple. She wanted her scales to shine something fun. Bessie, unlike her other Loch Ness monsters, wanted to always be the center of attention but never knew how. Because she was a rich green color, many of the other monsters would not invite her out. But with a love of dance, Bessie had planned to display her true colors pride of the Night of the Fallen Star. The Night of the Fallen Star happens each year. All of the Loch Ness monsters will come together and watch the stars fly across the sky. Each star lights up the night, and Bessie had always wanted to felt seen at that event. The Night of the Fallen Star is held each summer. This year, Bessie hopes to show the other monsters how amazing her scales are, despite being green. That morning, Bessie picked out her favorite dress and painted her claws. I thought that was such a cute touch. I don't know why. What's wrong? And then she ended up going home. I felt so sad. Oh, why did I write a sad story? Oh, I'm so sorry. However, at school, the other monsters told her not to come to the celebration at night. Bessie, determined to still go out, promptly went home to relax. Her father, Benson, came out of the kitchen. What's wrong, dear? Benson asked. You're home really early, and on the night of the fallen star. Bessie looked downward sadly. She did not want to remain at school any longer. She did not realize her father might get upset, though. I noticed I have a typo. Fun fact, you can still fix those. I'm going to ignore mine as we're rounding out this hour, however. But I hope you guys really enjoyed kind of an introduction into both story writing and also story kind of creation and design. It's a really interesting concept. And I hope you guys enjoyed it in a fun, interesting way, such as ASMR, as a way to help instruct it. One more time, though, my name is Betty Koss. I'm from Oakhill Collaborative, and I'm a digital navigator and their communications coordinator. If you're interested in learning any of these applications that we kind of covered today, you're more than welcome to check out our website. It's oakhillcollaborative.org. You can find our full schedule for the entire Mahoning Valley area in Northeast Ohio there. And if you were interested in setting up any appointment or wanting to come to classes but wanted more information, feel free to call us. We're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. You can call 330-406-0731. And thank you so much for joining me, guys. I'll see you next time.